I wanted to try something artsier. I needed some big, evil-looking dudes for MORK BORG. So I dipped into an old shoebox and pulled out some old Warhammer Fantasy Chaos Warriors. And I figured I'd paint them in kind of a doom metal aesthetic to match the art direction and vibes of the game. New game, old plastic. Let's paint them up. These lads don't need much intro. Some older Chaos Warriors and Knights from Warhammer Fantasy. The Knights were an eBay rescue, which I love grabbing every once in a while. Now the seller had sent them to me stripped of paint, but you could still see the remnants here and there of their previous paint job, which looks like a fairly standard red armor color scheme. I will be painting some of these models red to honor the spirit of their past scheme. Now for the others, to me, doom metal aesthetic is defined thematically by retro horror and dark fantasy, and visually by high contrast, screen printed aesthetic with liberal use of purple and green. I'm gonna try and emulate this look and feel, knowing that illustration and miniature painting have different requirements and working within what I believe works best for this medium. So, limited palette, purple, green, red, black, let's do it. I begin with my standard basing mix of cat litter and sand, and a coat of flat gray primer. The first color I apply is black-brown, and I cover the entire model. For the models I'm painting red, I'm gonna mix a little bit of flat red into the black-brown, just because. Then, I wash the models with black wash. Honestly, you could probably skip those steps by starting with a black primer, but I like using this method because the forms of the model have already begun to pick up some contrast and definition. Now I'm gonna take a sponge brush and cut off a few pieces, maybe a ½ inch, 1.5 centimeters, whatever your measurement of choice is. Then I dip it into the Scorpy Green, Royal Purple, and Flat Red and lightly dab it on the models. My goal here is to create interesting texture as much as it is establishing color. The process has a similar effect to a dry brush, but with a mottled, stippled effect. It's time to dip into the contrasting colors. I was looking at the Mounted Champion's chest skulls, and I thought if this were a doom metal concert poster, those skulls would absolutely be green. So I apply green to the purple warriors in the spots I want to draw attention to. The star on the shield, the horns, the weapons, the skulls. Then we flip it and reverse it. I apply purple to the green warriors' areas of interest. For the red fellas, green and red are known complementary colors, so that's my choice for the accent here. And this will tie them into the other two schemes. It's coming along, and it's time to address the black areas. We're going to clean up any errant paint spots with the black-brown. And once we're done tidying up, I'm going to mix standard gray with black-brown and paint the raised surfaces of those same black areas. We're going to start building some contrast here. Some spots like chainmail, fur, and hair, you can absolutely get away with dry brushing here, and I would recommend it. If this were a 2D illustration, I would have left these areas flat black and let the viewer fill in the details. But the reality of miniature painting means there isn't any form to be left up to the imagination. The sculpt has already defined it all. So you need to accentuate the form of the model, otherwise it will look underworked and unfinished. Speaking of, let's keep defining the armor. I mix a little bit of pink into my purple and edge highlight my purple fellas. I did start with a pure royal purple highlight, but it wasn't quite cutting it for me. I wanted something with a little more pop. For the green and red warriors, the initial paint was bright enough where I could just highlight with the same colors I sponged on earlier. This is also a good time for some focused washing. You can pin wash around the details to help separate them, add a little definition. For the brighter accent colors, in this case the green, I'm going to give them a full wash as well to knock them back so I can just highlight with the color straight out of the bottle. They're coming along pretty good at this point, but I think the weapons need a little zazz. We're gonna try a non-metallic metal effect on the weaponry, and I'll walk you through how I like to do it. So I start with 3 colors on my palette: green, white, and black-brown. I mix in some green with both the black-brown and the white, so we have 5 colors to start. I'm also adding some glaze medium, but you don't need it, and this can be done with water, provided you don't thin it down too much. I begin by painting the black-brown-green mix in opposite corners across the 2 halves of the blade. Then I take my my green-white mix and divide the colors into halves again by painting straight black-brown and white-green at opposite ends of the blade. From there, I just push and pull the paint on the blade, adding more color where I feel it necessary until the gradient smooths out while the paint is still wet on the model. This technique is called wet blending, and in my experience, it's easier using glaze medium over water, but it can be done with both. Once I'm happy with the gradient, I'll throw in a final highlight. I use my white-green mix to highlight the lighter areas and the central ridge going down the blade. Then, my unmixed green to highlight the dark areas. Usually this step seals the deal and pulls the whole thing together. I found this process to be slightly easier to do with darker colors, the purple in this case. As for the axe on the Red Knight, it's not as clear in terms of where the lights and darks should go, but just remember that the dark portions of one area should be touching the light portions of another and the effect will still work. I spent around 20 minutes on each weapon. I think they came out fine for the time allotted, but you can spend as much time as you like on them to get them to whatever finish you desire. One last step, my usual basing scheme. Base coat of flat earth, a black wash, and a tan earth dry brush to tie them in with the other models. Here's our boys in their completed state. I feel like they look like an evil blacklight poster, which was kind of the vibe I was going for. Overall, I think the purple guys were the closest to the vibe, but I think the red and green guys were successful in their own ways. Now you, my astute viewer, may have noticed that I started with 5 Chaos Warriors on foot, and frankly I couldn't decide what to paint the last 2. How do y'all think I should paint them? Which scheme dooms the hardest? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please remember to like and subscribe, it really helps a growing channel out. This is Bristle Cult. Happy painting. See you on the next one.